Director of Communications here at Oklahoma Contemporary, and we're really glad to welcome you guys who are here at our our Fairgrounds location, and those who are at our Facebook location via Facebook Live. This is our first live tour of an exhibit like this, so we're very excited about that. I want to tell you a little bit about ArtNow, which you're about to experience. Annual exhibition, only Oklahoma artists, that culminates in our party of the year, the Party with a Purpose, the ArtNow event and art sale. We'll literally sell pieces off the walls, off of models' bodies, off the floor. Basically, if you see it, you can buy it. We'll hook you up. Our curators here are going to give you a behind-the-scenes tour about how the exhibition came together, what it involved, Kelsey Parker and Jennifer Scanlon. And we'd love for you to share what you're doing here with us. Our hashtag is ArtNowOKC. And in addition to Facebook, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at OK Contemporary. If you'd like to buy tickets or learn more about the exhibition, you can do that at oklahomacontemporary.org. And I will hand it off to our lovely curators.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Scanlon, and I am the Curatorial and Exhibitions Director at Oklahoma Contemporary.
And I'm Kelsey Parker, and I am an independent curator and artist and project manager.
So welcome, thank you so much for coming. We were the co-curators this year. For those of you who are familiar with ArtNow, usually Oklahoma Contemporary has 2 guest curators, and you were a curator last year.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But this year, I just came on board Oklahoma Contemporary in February of last year, so right after ArtNow, and I really saw this exhibition as an opportunity for me. I moved from New York, and I really wanted to get to know the artists in Oklahoma and see what was going on. So I had the perfect co-curator with Kelsey because she is so deeply embedded in the art community and was able to introduce me to a lot of new artists, and so I got really excited about what's going on here. And hopefully I brought in some new artists for you to see.
You did. Yeah, we had a really great time. We made studio visits to as many artists as we could in the time that we had. And it was a great excuse for both of us to get into their studios and see what they're working on, talk to them about their ideas and their process, and to pull together a combination of works for the show that would really show the breadth of work that's being made by artists here in Oklahoma and the great quality that's being made here. And we both are, of course, working on ArtNow, but also many other projects that we are thinking about. And so it was a great excuse for us to go out and see what artists are making right now.
So we thought we'd start right here to show you. These 2 artists happen to give you a really great example of the breadth that we'll be looking at. But we'll take you all the way around the exhibition. We'll be talking briefly about each of the artists, but we're open to any questions you have as well, because we could go on and on and on about any of the artists. So please do ask us questions as we go through. But do you want to get started?
Sure, yeah. So this is James Andrew Smith. You may have seen one of his pieces as you walked in on the front wall. He's a painter in Tulsa, and his work, as you can see, is spectacular, stunning, photorealist painting. He really takes a lot of inspiration from art historical traditions of still life painting, and really elevating the commonplace to a more prestigious, elevating it and showing the beauty of the everyday objects like flowers or vases or objects that you may have around your home, but by showing them in this light, you really notice their beauty.
And maybe we'll make our Facebook Live go up really, really close so you can see the sort of the gorgeous detail, and you guys can do that. You who are here right now can go up and see really the amazing skill which he's rendered these flowers. Just gorgeous, gorgeous pieces. This was perhaps one of our first studio visits. We're like, oh wow! And so, and then just to show you something that moves far away from traditional art forms, we have Kathleen Faubert, who has this whole installation here is one work. She works in photography, but she's also been very interested in working in what she calls olfactory art. So she creates scents. She has learned how to create essentially perfumes, all the chemistry that goes into that. So her artwork is this photograph of the coast off of Nova Scotia, I believe, together with this perfume bottle, which contains a scent that she created based on her research into ambergris, which is something that was used, it comes from Wales, and it was something that was really very valuable in the times of whaling, so very connected to the image here, and also used to make perfumes as well as a number of other things. So this doesn't smell like the actual whale product. This is meant to evoke sort of these ideas of the sea and of whaling and maritime. So we have a sample here, so everybody can come up and smell it, and then look at the photograph at the same time. So that just shows you, from the very traditional to something that may be a little bit more unexpected, the range of things that are going on in Oklahoma. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll move on.
These are works by Michelle Himes-McCrory. She's an artist in Stillwater, and they are paintings, but if you get up close, you can notice that they're all on wood panels, and she actually uses wood carving tools to make some of the line work in these pieces. So this texture that's in the tree is all actually carved into the panel and then painted. A lot of the imagery that she works with is autobiographical about her own life and the relationships that she has in her life with her family and her friends, but she also pulls source material from things like antique photo albums and things that she finds at estate sales and antique stores.
And one of the things that I really love about Michelle's work is the fact that she is using wood, but she also, the wood grain becomes part of the drawing and the lines within it. So she's using wood both as a sort of symbol. She's very interested in the outdoors and the way that it might reflect her own inner space, but she's interested in wood as a material, so the very tactile quality that you get from these lines that are carved in, but also the figurative and organic nature of wood that you can see, particularly in some of those pieces over on the right. I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, keep going. We're going to make you walk.
Yeah. We have 24 artists in the show, so we want to be sure we can say something about all of them. So these photographs are by Kirsten Griffin, who's a photographer here in Oklahoma City. She does a lot of traveling and documents the beauty that she encounters on her travels. But as you can see, they have a very painterly quality for a photograph, and she uses a lot of in-camera manipulation techniques that create this soft painterly quality in the photos. And as I said, that manipulation, most of it does happen in camera. She does very little afterwards, like in Photoshop. Most of this manipulation happens inside the camera.
So we found these to be quite beautiful at their really large size because they're so immersive, and with the chilly weather that we have outside today, imagining that you're in Antigua right now is kind of one of the wonderful effects of these. But as a special for the ArtNow evening on the 20th, she's also offering them in different sizes. So if this didn't necessarily work with the space that you have available for your artwork, she does have some other sizes available. Morgan's work?
Sure.
We also have, most of the artists here are going to be all grouped together so that you can see a range of their work. But one of the artists you can see in several different places, and that's Morgan Robinson. He is another Stillwater artist. One of the things that I wanted to do was, and one of the things we're going to do at Oklahoma Contemporary as we move ahead, is really consider the arts as a whole spectrum that also includes design and functional objects. So we enlisted Morgan, who works in furniture. As you can see, his furniture is extremely sculptural, but these are in fact intended to be chairs or tables or end tables. So in addition to being beautiful, they also have a function in your home.
These prints here are a series by David Weber, who is an artist here in Oklahoma City and teaches at the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond. And these prints are From a video project, David is very interested in experimental cinema and animation, and he works directly onto film, film reels, and makes these marks and manipulations with paint or pencil or other art materials directly onto the film, and then that becomes an image that can either be run as projected as a film, but also can be printed as stills. So we have these stills here, but around the corner we also have one of his video installations that is set up in a darkened space behind this wall.
So yes, it's probably not easy to do that during a tour, but I highly recommend each of you to go in. It's a great way to start out the week. It's a beautiful and meditative experience. You can notice as you go through that it just shifts, the images shift very gently and quietly, and then he has created a sound aspect to the installation. So it's a really lovely experience to sit there for a while, 5 minutes, for an hour and 40 minutes, because I think that's how long it lasts, and really experience David's work in the round the way it's meant to be experienced.
Step inside here. Squeeze in here.
Now feel free to come up close because you're looking at jewelry.
Yeah.
So since it's smaller and more intimate, you might want to check it out closer up.
So this is jewelry, although it has very sculptural quality to it. They are all meant to be worn, but you can also, of course, display them as sculpture. These are by Lopita Todd, another artist who teaches at University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond. And they are made with materials like silicone and glow pigments, and create these really organic forms. And she's really thinking, her forms are inspired by microscopic views of things like marine life, or even down to the cellular level, how much beauty and detail can be found in those minuscule little components of the life that surrounds us. So she's kind of enhancing those and using those forms as inspiration for her jewelry.
And of course you'll notice that we have black light on them and they're glowing. She's very interested in the bioluminescent sea life as well. If you've seen, picture of coral reefs and the glowing animals that you can, sea life that you can see floating around. So she's fascinated by this. So many of them do in fact glow in the dark. Okay, this is Matt Goad. Matt is also a little bit split up. We've got his works over here, and you can probably turn around and see which one of the pieces on that wall is Matt's as well. He has a background as a graphic designer, and I think that really comes through in his paintings. He has a very clean and graphic look to the paintings that he does that's very much inspired by mid-century modernism and some of his heroes like Charlie Harper, who worked in graphic and painting during that period. He also has a great sense of humor and a real interest in animal welfare. So we've got this piece right here, for example, is we have the bull actually attacking the bullfighter in a sort of reversal of those usual roles. He offered these paintings, but he also has some prints that are going to be available. We really tried to offer a range of prices to make ArtNow works accessible to a wide group of people, allow all kinds of people to be able to have art in their homes. So we've got these beautiful prints by Matt, as well as some wonderful paintings. And we have another piece, we should say, right here by Marty Robinson. So you can see that in addition to his functional work, he also creates sculpture.
Over here we have Michael Elizondo, and he is working beautifully constructing these paintings. He builds these shaped wooden canvases that he works on, and the patterns and imagery are really inspired by traditional native designs that he's working with from his own heritage. And I think it's interesting, he creates them, all of these pieces can be hung either vertically or horizontally to suit the space that you have available.
Yes, they're wonderful pieces too that also, in addition to bringing in both sides of his mother's and his father's native heritage, really speak to modernism and sort of clean minimalist design as well. So they're bringing in a number of different influences.
Sure. Yeah, let's talk about this.
So right around this wall, if you walk along, and once again, these are really detailed pieces which you should examine close up because they incorporate not only the sort of crystals, but also various found objects. This artist is Lawrence Knapp, who is fascinated by rocks and geology and crystals, but also became interested in a Japanese art form called, I think, Dekodan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was putting these rhinestones onto surfaces. I think it started out with cell phone cases. It's a very meticulous, careful, you do it with tweezers. Oh, there's Mango right there. We should maybe talk. Just walked in. Okay. Putting them with tweezers in this very precise craft format and creating, he expanded beyond the cell phone case, you can see, to include very large scale panels. So you have on that side the Emerald City, which is ideal, of course, in this particular craft. And over here, do you want to talk about this great rotating?
Sure, yeah, we've got a box over here that's one of his newest pieces. And he's starting to kind of move into more kind of narrative imagery with these. And it is rotating, and the piece is called The Cycle. The images on the outside kind of tell the story of the cycle of relationships. There's a single person, they meet another person. On the next panel, they fall in love, and then on the next panel, they fall apart, and then the cycle starts over again. But that is illustrated on the outside of his box.
Okay.
Let's move over here. So this is a series of photographs by Justice Smithers, who is an Oklahoma City photographer. And as you can see, all of these images incorporate string. And he was really thinking about those string games that you play as a kid, where you do the cat's cradle and all the different things that you can do with strings strung between your hands. And thinking about that as something that, as a symbol of things that you can kind of carry with you for better or for worse from your childhood. And so using that string and the figure combined to kind of tell that story of the things that we carry with us from childhood that are attached to us, whether we like it or not.
So Justice is one of the younger artists in the exhibition. We have a large range. In addition to the types of works that are included, we have a range in the ages and really the career levels of the various artists that we're including. So we were really interested in showing some great emerging artists. And so the next artist that I'm going to call, there you are, Sarah. Are you okay with talking? This is Sarah Insigak, who is, I think, maybe the first time we've included a fashion designer as part of ArtNow. So why don't you talk a little bit about the works we have and what you do?
Yeah, so a lot of what I do is sustainable fashion, and I like to repurpose materials in my store. But when I'm doing like a more creative art project, I like to do block printing and work with textiles that are maybe more of my comfort. So this is denim, which I like to manipulate and distress and do a lot with vintage denim. So when I'm doing a project specifically, I'd like to gravitate more towards denim because it is something that I think ages beautifully and just has a lot of character over time. And organza was something that I thought would juxtapose it really nicely since it's so light and airy, and you can just kind of throw it on anything and it shows through whatever's underneath. So I thought I would print on that since I've never done something like that before. And so it kind of just brings together the whole idea of just mixing textiles, patterns, fibers, and necklaces too are something that I'm like delving into because I like the idea of being able to create my own accessories, and so I thought that other people might like the handmade aspect of that. So I did some ceramic necklaces, and I also, as far as like wall art, I was doing some abstract prints in that things that I probably will, well, I definitely won't be doing live at the show, so you'll be able to see the process. So basically I would do different layers of different blocks that I've hand carved and print those in a different way. So all of them will be unique, and it's something that I think is exciting to be able to do at the show live and kind of share the process. But yeah, I've never shown people what it's like, so I'm excited to talk more about it at the event. But yeah, that's me.
Sarah, can you also talk about, she has her own fashion brand. You want to talk about that and the
sure.
story behind the name, which is a really fun story.
So the brand is Stone and Harper, and it's named after Lucy Stone and Frances Harper. They were both human rights activists, and they cared about equality, they cared about just the rights to vote, the abolition, everything that I think now is like resurfacing as we're seeing, you know, a series of events bring up social justice. And so I wanted my business to kind of stand for that and be something that, even if it's not necessarily written across a t-shirt, it's like if you ask her name, you're going to hear this backstory and maybe be reminded that these two women, Lucy Stone and Frances Harper, one was black and one was white, and they would have never been likely paired in the 19th century, but they did work together because of these social justice issues. So having something as maybe superficial as fashion and being like a brand for that, I think is kind of cool because it brings more purpose to buying clothing, and it brings more of like a story behind it, and it kind of makes it more human in a sense. So yeah, that's the whole brand, and there's a website, and it's not important.
There's some photography by Jeff.
Yeah, and
right?
Jess is. He's actually one of my good friends, and he's shot the lookbook. If you go to the homepage, you get to see his work there. Or actually, no, it's a new one now. But if you go to the blog, there's like a lot of his photos there. So it's cool to have us next to each other, and we're the youngest people. But I love it. Yeah, I'm really, really honored to be a part of this and to share all of this. So thank you guys for caring about it.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm
Excited
glad
to you. So do we want to call on Matt to see if he can talk to us
Matt
about his work?
walked in. Where did he go? Oh, well, we missed our chance.
Okay, all right. We'll never find out about his face.
So these works are by Liz Roth, another artist from Stillwater. She teaches at Oklahoma State University painting. And we have 3 of her paintings and 1 of her prints. You can see the 3 paintings are all from the Grand Canyon. When she actually she was an artist in residence there a few years ago. She did a lot of painting in plein air while she was in residence at the Grand Canyon, but she also came home with a ton of sketches that she's been making paintings from since then. But this one here you may recognize as an Oklahoma landscape. This is the Cimarron River, which I think is probably one of the most distinctive looking rivers I've ever seen, at least. Beautiful screen print of the Cimarron River.
And she's working, of course, with this wonderful, the series of landscape traditions. So once again, a painter who makes reference to a great history, and also coming from the East Coast myself, really appeals to this very wide horizon line that you have here in Oklahoma and the West, and these sort of expanse of landscape that's available. So very much of Oklahoma, which is exciting for me.
So these ceramic pieces over here are by Stuart Asprey. He lives in Norman and teaches ceramics at OU. And you can see that it's a combination of ceramics and illustration. He does all the hand drawing on the surfaces of his ceramics. And most of them are commentary on the kind of effects that consumption can have on people, either of alcohol or certain kinds of foods. This piece right here is called The Hangover Helper, and you see illustrations of these kind of like, wives' tales of the hangover cures in different cultures. So you can see that there, and then these mugs that he's created for us feature insects that are native species to Oklahoma.
One of the things that I love about Stuart is his sense of humor.
Yes.
So it's a rather dry, maybe a little dark sense of humor, but it's really fun. and his illustrations are gorgeous as well. So in addition to form making, he's also really good at the surface design. And so just as an example of perhaps a sense of humor, the unillustrated piece over there is the knuckle rings. You can see ceramic knuckle rings, which wouldn't be useful in a fight, but if you get one punch in, you can
Okay, if you turn around behind you, we have another ceramic artist, Brandon Reese, who lives in Stillwater and teaches at OSU, teaches sculpture there. And you can see he combines his ceramics with other materials, often combined with wood. He is known for making very large-scale ceramic sculptures, similar to this piece, but maybe 8 to 10 feet wide. But he's brought us a variety of things to kind of represent the types of work that he does.
Yes, I loved this installation in particular is one that's available as an entire installation if you're interested, or you could just get a few of the pieces. But it's called Community, and it makes me think about the different kinds of communities we live in. You could have 2 or 3 that would just be the community of your family. You could include a group of 5 or 6 that might talk about the larger community. For me, it's very much thinking about the great artistic community we have here. I think the example of Sarah and Justice, who work together and promote each other, is a really great example of a kind of positive energy and real connection that I found here in Oklahoma among the artists, which has been another great thing for me to discover, in addition to a lot of really fantastic artists.
Okay, these 3 pieces are by Crystal Z. Campbell, who is living in Tulsa. She is just starting the 2nd year of the Tulsa Artist Fellowship Program there, if you're familiar with that, from the Kaiser Foundation. And this series is called People Without Fingerprints. And Crystal's really thinking about the kind of evolution of the fingerprint, where, there's a long history of the fingerprint being used to identify persons of interest, whether that interest is negative or positive. But it has kind of developed now into being our fingerprint being kind of our access into the digital world, where we're using our fingerprint as our security on our devices, or other, or your lock on your home maybe has a fingerprint. So she's thinking about this evolution of fingerprints in our world and kind of the meaning behind that.
Right. She has a lot of work with identity and bodily identity. She's very interested in the ways in which those have deeper context for society. Here, I think these are pieces we chose because they also have sort of beautiful organic. The fingerprint is a very beautiful, swirly organic form, so it kind of gives that additional visual layer to her research into those ideas.
These drawings are by Amanda Sawyer, who lives in Stillwater, a kind of young artist there. You really have to get up close to look at these because they are small, but they have a ton of intricate detail in them. All of the imagery is really about women and girls and the relationships that women have to each other, but also the kind of political moves that have been made to, in some cases, attempts to restrict women's rights. And so these drawings are often in response to those things and how she sees them affecting her own self and her children. The drawings themselves she never actually plans them in advance. She refers to them as automatic drawings. She just begins with an idea and starts drawing, and the composition comes together magically. I don't know how she does it. It's amazing to think about how she works in all this detail, and it's really an intuitive process for her.
She creates these wonderful worlds. If you have, I think each one seems to suggest a real story. So please do come closer and take a look at it. I think they'd also, for those of you who are fans of science fantasy, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, for example, or I just watched Emerald City. I don't know if anybody caught that. These are, she's very much drawing on these ideas of science fantasy and costuming and elaborate hairstyles. And incorporating some of her maybe more politically motivated or socially motivated ideas within this fantasy realm.
Yeah, she's very interested in costume design, which I think you can see in her work. thing we want to mention, which is not here tonight, that will be part of the event on January 20th, is poetry. We will have poets on site here, the short order poets, which you may have seen out and about. They will come with their typewriters and take orders for poems on demand during the event. So they will be set up kind of over here where Jack and Alan are hanging out. So whenever you come to the event on the 20th, be sure you get your poem, your custom poem.
Right. So we were really excited to be able to include some examples of creative making live during the event. So we've got Sarah doing her prints, and we have the poets creating poets on site. Just to get, well, it's an exciting event, as I'm sure you all know, and a lot of fun, but also to incorporate creative making into that process, into the whole atmosphere.
So these geometric paintings you're looking at here are by Jason Wilson, and he is, of course, very interested in creating these kind of optical illusions with his work, but he also is really influenced by quilt making, and even in his artist statement, he talks about the impact of watching his grandmother make quilts when he was a child, and how that process of design and assembling a pattern like that has really stuck with him throughout his life.
But again, working within a tradition of pop art, looking at those artists who have traditionally used color theory and these kinds of forms and shapes to create visual effects within art.
This series of photographs is by Amy Rocket Todd, who is based in Tulsa. And all of these are ambrotypes, which is a Civil War era process for making photos. It's a similar process to tintypes, which were the most common medium that were used to document the Civil War. So most of the images you've seen of the Civil War are actually tintypes, which are on tin. These are the same process done on glass. So the surface is actually a glass plate with a light-sensitive coating on the top of it. You'll also see in her imagery that there's a strong influence of architecture, and she does have a background and an interest in architecture, and she's very interested in how architecture kind of shapes our lives, and then also how sometimes architecture gets forgotten, and then what happens to a building whenever it's left vacant and uncared for.
And this, I mean, the use of the historical process really gives you a sense. It's quite haunting if you go up and look at them. The sense of the past and of things abandoned, of memories and things that no longer exist. So she's using her techniques for a very effective end. Please go up close and look at all the details.
So this wall is Molly Dilworth, and she is another artist who is now in her second year of the Tulsa Artist Fellowship Program with Crystal Campbell, we talked about earlier. And she, as you can see, is very interested in color and pattern and shape, and has worked a lot in large-scale sculpture. She's done a lot of public art installations all over the country, where these kind of patterns are translated more into a dimensional form. If you ever get a chance to look at her website, I highly recommend checking out some of those really large-scale things that she's done. But we were pleased to be able to present some of her smaller scale works, if you can imagine, that investigate different materials and working with color and forms.
Yeah, like Jason, she is also very interested in quilts. But you can see she has gone a completely different route, or a very different route with her ideas of quilts and how they can translate into contemporary art. Those three pieces that are over by Kelsey, there you go, thank you, Kelsey, are pieces that she does, which she says as sketches. So a little bit like the automatic drawing that we were talking about with Amanda, in which she has a sheet and then she stitches onto it in a way, it's sort of in free form, which is not something you necessarily think of as embroidery being used for. So she's really using stitching very much like she would drawing, but it's of course a different, more deliberate way to create a mark, and has other sort of tactile associations to it. And this tactility, of course, continues with this piece, which is painted, but painted on fabric, with this beautiful sort of installation that she has here. And these pieces here, which are sewn from flag material, she's also a very research-based artist, very interested in flags and all the meanings of flags throughout centuries, to symbolize nations, to sort of signal distress, to celebrate. So she's using flag materials here. I don't know if you had a chance to see the Gorilla Art Park that was over in the Broadway location, but she created 3 flags as part of the outdoor sculpture park we had there. So she's continuing the theme with this installation here.
The series of paintings is by Jim Poland, who is an artist working in Tulsa. And we had a really interesting studio visit with Jim, getting to see the kind of progression of his work over his lifetime. His father was an artist, and so he has been making art pretty much his entire life, as long as he can remember. But when he was a pretty young man, he had a car accident that left him paralyzed. And so he left his art making practice for quite a long time to focus on his family and his health. He went to law school, became a lawyer, but eventually returned to painting, but came back to it in a much freer, kind of looser style. He had previously worked much more photorealistic, and at the time of the accident was working on a painting that prominently featured a tiger. And that tiger theme has since carried throughout his work. This piece is part of his tiger series, and we were fortunate to be able to see kind of the progression of those works from the very realistic tiger painting that he was working on, and then he got looser and looser with it. And so you can see the references to the tiger here, but I think it's really interesting how he's developed over the course of his life, and his style has changed to go along with it.
One of the things that's interesting about Jim is he starts off applying paint to canvas and then slowly taking it away, scraping it off. He has a whole series of different methods that he uses to create marks on canvas. He draws, he writes on the canvas after he's finished painting, and then takes paint away. This particular piece here, and I think here as well, he uses Skittles to create the works. He wouldn't divulge his exact process, but these are actually the marks of Skittles that they use with this kind of solvent on the canvas itself. So he's treating that canvas with a number of different techniques to create what I find are very energetic and evocative pieces.
We have another sculpture by Morgan Robinson here.
We do really have a wide range of Morgan's work in this exhibition.
Okay, these works are by Molly Murphy Adams, who's an artist living in Tulsa, and no pun intended here, but the continuous thread of her work is beading. But you can see that she applies the beadwork in a lot of different ways. She's got some jewelry here, which are beautiful pieces of jewelry that, again, you have to get up close to appreciate the detail. But she also has developed this process where she's able to do beading on paper. So we've got this grid of gold pieces that incorporate beading and stitching on paper. And then she's also, these are, I think, the newest pieces she's brought us, and this is a collaboration with a photographer named Roy Graff. So he takes the photos and then sends them to her, and she applies the beadwork on top, which I think is a really interesting collaboration, and I think is really successful here.
Yeah, Molly's working a lot with pattern and color, so she's doing it to really vibrant effect with the jewelry. But if you go up close, she's doing maybe a little more subtle, but really gorgeous. And you really have to see these up close to see the detail of the beads, the texture that they give, and the use of this gold paint, which is sort of has this wonderful metallic sheen, which contrasts with the sparkly sort of glass exterior of the beads. So she's working with she's using her materials very thoughtfully to create all kinds of different effects, as well as working with pattern and color.
Okay, our lollipops here. These are by Jessica Sanchez, who's an artist in Ada. And she is a sculptor and a painter, and a lot of her most recent work is about this dynamic between something that is repulsive and how whenever we see something that is sort of grotesque, we're kind of repulsed, but then at the same time we're attracted to it, like you can't look away, even though you might want to. And how things like that, you know, our societal standards want you not, like we're not supposed to stare, right? But she wants to give us an opportunity to stare. So she has created these lollipops that you can probably tell from where you're standing, but if you get up close, they all incorporate objects that you probably would not want to find in your lollipop. But she is inviting us to, you know, have this visceral reaction, and that it's okay in this context to stare.
Yes, I think she's probably hit the whole range of pretty repulsive objects that fit into a lollipop. But then they're all, and she's doing it once again with a certain sense of humor, and they're kind of fun, and they're available individually. So if you just wanted one of these, that may be more than enough to have around. But she's doing it tongue-in-cheek. She's pushing boundaries and having a little bit of fun by putting it in a heart-shaped lollipop.
Okay, and then the last artist we're going to discuss is actually here today, Sarah Atlee. I don't know if you want to say anything, but yeah, we're thrilled to have Sarah's work. And again, there's a common factor here with several of our artists with the influence of quilting and quilt making in the work. But I'll let Sarah speak before I say too much.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for those of you who are still watching this video, appreciate it. This is a series of still life paintings I call the Glitch series. And it's a departure from my previous works doing still life painting that was a little more traditional, a little more grounded in observational techniques and in a little bit more traditional painting processes. But I started thinking about how much time I spend looking at screens just throughout my day, either just on my own time or as a part of my creative process or part of just, you know, running a business. And I started thinking about, you know, when we like to take pictures of our food and put it on Instagram, right? Because we want everyone to know, everyone to share this wonderful experience we're having. Like, I got this gorgeous tomato at the peak of tomato season from the farmer's market, and I'm about to cut it up and eat it, but first I'm going to take a picture so everyone else can be jealous. And I started thinking about, we present this sort of perfect experience through our snapshots or whatever. And I started thinking about, well, sometimes those perfect experiences get interrupted and get corrupted. And like, what if I'm looking at something on a screen, or my friend sent me a picture of this beautiful piece of fruit, but I can't get good cell service right here, so it's really low resolution and I really can't see what's going on. Or what if my screen's broken? What if I dropped my phone? Or what if I stepped on my laptop but I can't afford to buy a new one? Stuff like that. So this illusion of perfection that we kind of present as part of our life online, I wanted to question that and use the medium of traditional still life painting to do that.
Which brings us in a really nice way back to the beginning and this idea of still life painting and the ways in which historical or traditional techniques have inspired a lot of the artists, but which they're departing from them and going in really interesting directions as well.
So thank you all for coming out today. We're so happy to have you here.